Inefficiency is officially over. Under the Trump administration, we will finally have a foreign funding agency that prioritizes national interests. Effective July 1st, USAID will formally cease executing foreign aid. Foreign aid projects that align with government policy and serve U.S. interests will be managed by the State Department and implemented in a more responsible, strategic, and efficient manner. Former Presidents Obama and Bush criticize USAID closure. The closure of USAID drew dissatisfaction from left-leaning media outlets that had benefited from its programs. CNN claimed that the closure of USAID could lead to 14 million deaths within the next 5 years. At this point, two former US presidents also stepped forward, openly contradicting Trump. Former President George W. Bush had a close relationship with USAID. During his tenure, he actively promoted US foreign policy and development aid. He not only supported USAID's operations, but also expanded its influence through a series of major initiatives, including the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief PEPFAR, the Millennium Challenge Corporation MCC, and the President's Malaria Initiative PMI, integrating development aid into national security strategy. After leaving office, Bush continued to promote global health through the Bush Presidential Center, particularly in AIDS prevention and cancer programs, with some projects maintaining cooperation with or benefiting from USAID. On July 1st, he highly praised USAID's achievements in a video, particularly mentioning PEPFAR, which he promoted during his term, and openly questioned the Trump administration's decision to close the agency. He asked, "Is it in our interest to save 25 million people who otherwise might have died?" "I think so." Bush also stated, "Your work demonstrates the great power of the United States, and that brings us great solace. On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your hard work. May God bless you." On the same day, former President Barack Obama also criticized the Trump administration's closure of USAID in an open letter, calling it a huge mistake. Compared to Bush, Barack Obama's relationship with USAID was even deeper during his presidency. He not only continued to support USAID's global mission, but also expanded its budget and scope of projects. He further promoted systemic reforms through initiatives like USAID Forward, integrating it closely with foreign policy to enhance its role in global affairs. In his open letter, Obama stated, "Ending your existence and programs will harm the most vulnerable people and will also harm the United States." He also said that for many people around the world, USAID is America, and encouraged USAID employees to continue to be proud of their mission as they seek new jobs. The former Democratic president also predicted that sooner or later, bipartisan leaders will realize how important you are. However, neither former president mentioned the serious problems within USAID. The agency did not embody the America First principle of focusing national resources on goals directly serving U.S. interests. In particular, the agency's long-term operations suffered from inefficiency and unclear financial flows. A significant portion of its massive annual budget of billions of dollars was consumed by bureaucracy or organizations unrelated to U.S. interests. According to relevant data, during the Biden era, the 2023 budget request was $29.4 billion, but USAID ultimately managed over $40 billion in funds and spent nearly $38.1 billion. In 2024, despite a higher budget request of $32 billion, actual expenditures were only about $21.7 billion. On July 1st, after concluding his visit to Alligator Alley in Florida, Trump commented on the two former presidents aboard Air Force One. When asked about the policies of previous U.S. administrations, Trump stated, "President Obama was a terrible president. President Biden is the worst president in our country's history. President Bush should not have entered the Middle East and messed things up there, so I wouldn't give him a high score either. Thank you very much, everyone." As he was about to turn and leave, Trump added, "But I would give Trump a high score." Next, let's discuss Trump's showdown with the media. On July 2nd, U.S. media company Paramount agreed to pay Trump a $16 million settlement, covering lawyer fees, litigation costs, and future funds for building a presidential library or charitable causes. The case originated during last year's election campaign when Paramount's subsidiary, CBS, extensively edited an interview with Democratic candidate Kamala Harris on its famous 60 Minutes program. Trump sued, accusing 60 Minutes of using deceptive editing to make viewers believe Harris was a more capable leader, thereby tilting the balance toward the Democratic Party and interfering with the U.S. election. He demanded $20 billion in damages from CBS. After Paramount offered a settlement, a spokesperson for Trump's legal team stated in a declaration, "With this record-breaking settlement, President Trump has delivered another victory for the American people, as he once again demands that the fake news media be held accountable for its wrongdoing and deception." CBS and Paramount realized the gravity of this historic case and therefore had no choice but to settle. According to Fox News, CBS has agreed to revise its editing guidelines and implement new mandatory rules, including CBS timely publishing full content of presidential candidate interviews and unedited transcripts in the future. Those familiar with the settlement negotiations refer to the revised guidelines as the Trump rules. This settlement represents Trump's latest victory against U.S. media companies. It means that Trump has won over $55 million in compensation through lawsuits in the past few months, including $16 million from ABC, $16 million from Paramount, and $25 million from Meta, Facebook's parent company. Finally, let's discuss the latest developments on the Merida Act. After narrowly passing the Senate on Tuesday afternoon, the House of Representatives convened on Wednesday to deliberate the bill. Republicans aimed to complete the legislative process before July 4th to send the bill to President Trump for his signature. July 4th is US Independence Day, and Trump appears to attach particular significance to this date. According to a senior cabinet official, Trump even believes that his defeat in the 2020 presidential election was a divine arrangement, a providence, intended to allow him to preside over the 250th anniversary celebration of the founding of the United States as president. This astonishing news was revealed by Monica Crowley, who serves as the U.S. Chief of Protocol on the Part Force One podcast program to The Washington Post. The episode aired on Wednesday. Crowley served as Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Treasury Department during Trump's first term. As U.S. Chief of Protocol, Crowley currently advises President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio on national security and international diplomatic protocol. This position holds ambassadorial rank and is one of the Assistant Secretaries of State at the State Department. Crowley stated, "Now Trump says, you know what? 2020 had to happen that way. It was a divine providence." Crowley emphasized that after his 2020 election defeat, Trump initially thought he would not hold office again, but he now believes that his 2024 election victory was some kind of divine intervention that allowed him to participate in major historical moments for the US. These historic moments include the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 2026, the North American co-hosting of the FIFA World Cup in 2026, and the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, which will be held months before the end of his second term. Of course, signing the Merida Act personally on July 4th would make it even more perfect. However, the Merida Act encountered resistance in the House. On Wednesday, July 2nd, the House conducted its second procedural vote, passing it with 213 votes in favor and 212 against. At 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time that evening, the House held a rules vote on the Merida Act. The rules vote is solely for debating the Merida Act before the full floor vote. The debate lasted approximately 3.5 hours, with the final vote taking place in the early hours of Thursday. Before the vote, ominous signs appeared in the House. Due to severe weather, many flights for lawmakers from both parties were cancelled or delayed, and they were scrambling to return to Washington to participate in the vote, adding a layer of uncertainty to the bill's prospects. It was estimated that about 9 Republicans were still en route. On July 2nd, a leaked memo obtained by CNN showed that members of the House Freedom Caucus decided to take action against the Senate version of the bill on issues such as energy tax credits and Medicaid reform. The Freedom Caucus is the House's most conservative fiscal hawk group. Investigative journalist Nick Soto revealed on X that 10 Republican lawmakers would vote against the Merida Act. According to notes, a Washington digital news agency, Kentucky Republican Congressman Thomas Massie stated that he had 10 Republican House members to block President Trump's Merida Act from passing the House. He said, "I don't have any caucus. There are about 10 opponents right now, but I don't speak for them, nor do I vouch for them." Meanwhile, Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett, who had been one of the main Republican opponents, told CNN that after meeting with Trump on Wednesday morning, he now leaned toward voting in favor of the president's domestic agenda bill. He said, "This brings me closer to the goal. We'll have a meeting here and go over everything to make sure all the facts are accurate." The president's message was very informative. South Carolina Congressman Ralph Norman was also one of several Republican opponents who had previously stated he would vote against Trump's bill unless circumstances changed. He recently announced that he would support the bill in both the procedural vote and final passage. He said supporting the bill was the right thing to do at the right time. He explained that he changed his mind because Trump assured him that these concerns would be addressed. Norman stated that the president guaranteed during the White House meeting on Wednesday that concerns about the slow phase-out of green energy tax credits and other conservative priorities would be dealt with. On Wednesday night, Trump seemed to see hope. He wrote on Truth Social, "It looks like the House is ready to vote tonight. We've had wonderful conversations all day. The House Republican majority is united for the good of the country, achieving the largest tax cuts in history and massive economic growth. Go Republicans, and everyone. Make America great again." However, the process was not smooth. On Wednesday night, House Speaker Mike Johnson kept the vote open, working through the night to persuade opponents to change their minds, hoping to get the Merida Act to Trump's desk on time before the July 4th holiday. But as of early Thursday morning Eastern Time, 5 Republicans still opposed it: Georgia Congressman Andrew Clyde, Indiana Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, Texas Congressman Keith Self, Pennsylvania Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, and Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie. Early Thursday morning, Trump posted again, reiterating the importance of passing the major bill. He wrote on Truth Social, "Biggest tax cuts in history and a booming economy versus biggest tax increases in history and a failing economy. What are Republicans waiting for? What do you want to prove? Unhappy with the MAGA movement and wasting your votes?" Half an hour later, Trump posted again, urging Republicans to pass the Merida Act. He said, "This should be an easy yes vote for Republicans." Absurd. At 3:30 a.m., the House passed the rules vote to 119 to 213. All but Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania voted in favor. This was a major victory for Speaker Johnson. Although the fight is not over, Don is ahead. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, however, used the rules to deliberately delay time. He controlled the House floor using the magic minute, a privilege enjoyed by party leaders allowing them to speak freely in the House. Jeffries' speech began at 4:53 a.m. and lasted until 1:25 p.m., a total of 8 hours and 33 minutes. He used an unusually slow cadence and pauses to attack the bill's provisions and their impact on Americans' lives. Jeffries' speech set a record in the U.S. House of Representatives. The previous record was held by House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy in November 2021, who spoke for 8 hours and 32 minutes to block Biden's $1.9 trillion Build Back Better bill. House Speaker Johnson sarcastically remarked that House Republicans were happy to be able to pass President Trump's policy agenda bill today after Jeffries concluded his lengthy remarks, mocking the Democratic leader. Vice President J.D. Vance said on X that he received a text message from a Republican congressman who had previously been hesitant about the bill but had now firmly stated his support due to Jeffries' performance. The final House vote took place on Thursday afternoon at over 2 p.m. Ultimately, the $3.3 trillion Merida Act passed with 218 votes to 214. Republicans Thomas Massie and Brian Fitzpatrick, along with all Democrats, voted against it. Johnson had the last laugh, and Trump won the most important piece of legislation of his second term.